Story number 1. The Donner Family's Curse. I've always been drawn to the tragic tales etched into America's history, especially those shrouded in mystery and sorrow. Donner Pass, nestled in the rugged Sierra Nevada of California, stands as a testament to human desperation and survival. The story of the Donner Party, pioneers who became infamous for their ordeal during the winter of 1846 to 1847, has haunted the region for generations. But beneath the well-documented horrors lies a darker, more enigmatic legend, the curse of the Donner family. This is the story of my encounter with that very curse. It was late November when I decided to undertake a solo expedition to Donner Pass. As a historian specializing in American frontier stories, I was eager to uncover the lesser-known aspects of the Donner Party tragedy. Armed with journals, old maps, and a camera, I set out with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The pass, often enveloped in snowstorms, was notorious not just for its harsh weather but also for the eerie occurrences reported by travelers and locals alike. The journey began smoothly. I hiked through dense pine forests, the scent of resin filling the crisp air. The landscape was breathtaking. Snow-capped peaks reflected the fading sunlight, and the silence was profound, broken only by the occasional call of a distant owl. By the second day, I reached the remnants of the original campsite. Weathered tents lay abandoned, their structures weakened by years of neglect. As I explored, I felt an unsettling presence, as if the spirits of the lost were watching my every move. That night, I set up camp near the remains of a makeshift fireplace. As I sat by the fire, reading through the Donner Party's diaries, the wind began to howl outside, signaling the approach of a fierce snowstorm. The temperature plummeted, and the sky darkened ominously. I packed my gear, knowing I needed to find more substantial shelter before the storm fully unleashed its fury. As I trekked deeper into the pass, the storm hit with unexpected ferocity. Snowflakes whipped through the air, reducing visibility to mere feet. My progress slowed to a crawl, every step a battle against the biting cold and relentless wind. Just when I thought I couldn't move any further, I stumbled upon an old cabin, its wooden frame battered by years of harsh winters. Relief washed over me as I approached, hoping to find refuge from the tempest. Inside, the cabin was cold and musty, but it offered a semblance of warmth against the raging storm outside. I lit a fire in the old stone fireplace, the flames providing both light and comfort. As I settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, and shadows seemed to dance at the edges of my vision. Around midnight, the storm reached its peak, the wind howling like a chorus of tormented souls. It was then that I heard it, a faint, sorrowful whisper echoing through the cabin. At first, I dismissed it as the wind playing tricks on my mind, but the whispers persisted, growing louder and more distinct. "Help us! Help us!" My heart pounded as I strained to listen. The whispers seemed to emanate from the very walls, filled with anguish and despair. I grabbed my flashlight and cautiously moved towards the back of the cabin, the beam cutting through the darkness. There, on the far wall, I saw it, a faded portrait of the Donner family, their eyes hollow and empty, staring lifelessly at me. Suddenly, the temperature dropped further, my breath visible in the frigid air. The portrait began to change before my eyes, the faces distorting into grotesque masks of pain and suffering. The room grew colder, the shadows deeper, as if the very essence of the family's tragedy was seeping into the space around me. A loud crash echoed through the cabin, jolting me back to reality. I spun around, flashlight trembling in my hand, only to see nothing but the swirling snow outside. But the feeling of being watched intensified, the oppressive silence now broken by the faint sound of footsteps pacing back and forth on the wooden floorboards. Terrified, I backed away, tripping over a loose floorboard and falling to the ground. As I scrambled to my feet, the whispers returned, louder and more urgent. "Don't stay, don't stay." I knew I had to leave, but the storm showed no signs of letting up. The path I had taken to the cabin was now obscured by snow. The landscape transformed into a blinding white void. Desperate, I tried to retrace my steps, but each direction seemed identical, the storm disorienting my sense of direction. That's when I saw it, a massive, shadowy figure standing at the edge of the clearing, its form barely distinguishable against the swirling snow. This presence was both terrifying and sorrowful, a spectral guardian bound to the cursed land. The creature let out a mournful howl that reverberated through the storm, a sound that spoke of eternal pain and unending duty. I froze, unable to move as the creature began to approach, each step heavy and deliberate. The footprints it left behind were enormous, their depth indicating immense weight and power. Panic surged through me as I realized that leaving the pass was not going to be easy. Something or someone was preventing my escape, summoning every ounce of courage. I grabbed my camera and began to document the encounter, hoping to provide evidence of the supernatural events unfolding before me. The creature loomed closer, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light that pierced through the darkness. "Find us peace," it seemed to convey, its voice a blend of sorrow and desperation. Understanding dawned on me. I wasn't just witnessing a legend, I was part of it. The spirits of the Donner family, trapped by their tragic fate, were reaching out, seeking closure and redemption. The creature was both their guardian and their tormentor, bound to the land they had lost their lives in. With a deep breath, I decided to honor their plea. I began to speak softly, recounting the story of the Donner Party, acknowledging their suffering and the horrors they endured. As I spoke, the storm outside began to abate, the wind's fury easing as if recognizing my intention to help. The creature paused, its expression softening, the oppressive presence lifting slightly. "Thank you," it whispered, the voice filled with genuine relief. The shadows around me began to dissolve, the cabin growing warmer and more inviting. The portrait of the Donner family returned to its original form, their eyes now filled with a serene acceptance. As dawn broke over Donner Pass, the snow melted away, revealing a tranquil landscape unmarred by the storm's wrath. The cabin stood silent, the curse lifted by my acknowledgement and respect for the lost souls who had suffered so much. I packed my gear, the memory of that night etched into my mind forever. Driving away from Donner Pass, I couldn't shake the feeling of having been part of something greater, a connection to the past that transcended time and space. The encounter had taught me the profound impact of empathy and the importance of honoring those who have been lost to history. Years have passed since that transformative winter, but the memory of the Donner family's curse remains vivid in my mind. The legend of the haunted pass continues to captivate and terrify, a reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead. Whenever I hear tales of unusual occurrences or unexplained phenomena in the Sierra Nevada, I can't help but think back to that night, knowing that some curses are real and that compassion can bridge the gap between the past and the present. And sometimes, when the wind rustles through the pines and the snow blankets the land in silence, I catch a glimpse of a faint shadow or hear the distant echo of a sorrowful plea, a silent testament to the bonds that connect us all and the enduring hope for redemption and peace, even amidst the most tragic of histories. Story number 2. The Curse of the Colorado Mine. I've always been drawn to the untamed beauty of Colorado's Rockies, where the peaks pierce the heavens and the forests whisper secrets of bygone eras. As a freelance journalist with a passion for uncovering hidden histories, the story of the abandoned mining camp near El Dorado Pass piqued my interest. Local legends spoke of a curse, a dark shadow cast over the land after a group of miners unearthed something best left buried. Determined to uncover the truth, I set out to explore the remnants of that fateful winter. It was early March when I arrived at the outskirts of El Dorado Pass. The snow had melted, revealing the rugged terrain beneath, but the memory of the harsh winter lingered in the air. The old mining camp stood silent, its wooden structures weathered by time and nature. As I approached, the creaking of the abandoned buildings echoed through the valley, a haunting reminder of the lives lost to the unforgiving elements. My first stop was the remnants of the main lodge, where the miners had gathered before the storm hit. Dust-covered tables and overturned chairs painted a grim picture of panic and desperation. I set up my equipment, determined to capture every detail of the site. As dusk approached, the temperature began to drop, and a thick fog rolled in from the mountains, enveloping the camp in an eerie silence. That night, I decided to stay in one of the intact cabins, hoping to experience firsthand the environment that had driven the miners to the brink. The cabin was sparse, with only the remnants of a fire pit and a few personal items scattered about. I lit a lantern, the flickering light casting long shadows on the walls. As I settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Around midnight, the wind picked up, howling through the cracks in the walls and rattling the windows. I was jolted awake by a loud banging sound coming from outside. Heart racing, I grabbed my camera and cautiously approached the door, peering out into the darkness. The snow had fallen heavily, muffling any sounds, but the pounding persisted, growing louder and more frantic. I stepped outside, the cold biting at my skin, and saw nothing but swirling snowflakes and the ghostly outlines of the trees. Confused and unnerved, I returned to the cabin, only to find deep footprints etched into the fresh snow surrounding the building. They were enormous, far larger than any humans, and led away into the dense forest. My mind raced. Could this be the legendary Wendigo, the creature said to haunt these mountains, preying on those who dared to disturb the sacred ground? Determined to find answers, I followed the trail the next morning, the footprints guiding me deeper into the wilderness. The forest was thick with snow-laden pines, the air crisp and still. Hours passed as I trekked through the relentless cold, my breath visible in the frigid air. Just as my hope began to wane, I stumbled upon a hidden entrance partially concealed by snowdrifts, an old mine shaft, forgotten by time. Gathering my courage, I descended into the darkness, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the blackness. The walls were adorned with ancient symbols and carvings, remnants of a civilization long gone. In the center of the chamber stood a stone altar, upon which lay the artifacts the miners had unearthed, a collection of totems and statues, each more ominous than the last. As I approached the altar, a sudden chill filled the air, and the temperature dropped sharply. I heard faint whispers echoing through the cavern, voices filled with anguish and sorrow. The realization hit me. These artifacts were not mere relics. They were conduits for the spirits bound to this land. By disturbing them, the miners had unleashed a malevolent force that now sought vengeance. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble, and a low growl resonated through the chamber. The white shadows began to materialize, swirling around me with an intensity that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. The Wendigo, a towering figure with glowing eyes and matted fur, emerged from the darkness, his presence suffocating. I backed away, heart pounding, as the creature advanced, each step heavy and deliberate. "Leave this place," it seemed to convey through its piercing gaze, the weight of centuries of suffering evident in its eyes. But I was paralyzed by fear, unable to move or speak. In that moment, I remembered the stories of forgiveness and respect for the land, the only way to quell the restless spirits. Summoning every ounce of courage, I reached out and placed my hand on the stone altar, my voice trembling as I spoke words of apology and reverence. "I'm sorry for disturbing your peace. I honor your memory and seek only to understand." The Wendigo paused, its glowing eyes softening slightly as it regarded me with a mixture of sorrow and resignation. Slowly, the white shadows began to dissipate, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as if the spirits were finally finding peace. The creature let out a final, mournful howl before fading into the darkness, leaving me alone in the silent chamber, exhausted and emotionally drained. I made my way back to the surface, the footprints now gone without a trace. The storm had passed, replaced by a serene stillness that enveloped the land. As I emerged from the mine, The first light of dawn broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the snow-covered landscape. Driving away from El Dorado Pass, I couldn't shake the memory of that night, the sight of the Wendigo, the ancient symbols, and the lingering sense of both fear and reverence. The experience had taught me the profound impact of respecting the land and the spirits that guard its secrets. The curse of the Donner family was real, a testament to the consequences of disturbing what should remain undisturbed. Years have passed since that transformative winter, but the memory of the Wendigo and the cursed mining camp remains vivid in my mind. The legend of Dyatlov Pass and its dark history continue to captivate and terrify, a reminder of the thin veil between human ambition and the supernatural forces that lie in wait. Whenever a storm approaches and the winds howl through the Rockies, I'm reminded of the night I faced the curse of the Donner family, a haunting experience that underscores the importance of humility and respect in the face of nature's enduring mysteries. Living with the memory of that night has instilled in me a deep respect for the untamed wilderness and the legends that protect it. It's a reminder that some stories are too powerful to be forgotten, their echoes lingering in the winds and whispers of the mountains. And as long as we remember and honor the tales of those who came before us, the spirits of the past will continue to guide us. Their whispers a haunting yet beautiful melody that echoes through the ages. And sometimes, when the wind rustles through the pines and the snow blankets the land in silence, I catch a glimpse of a faint shadow or hear the distant echo of a sorrowful plea, a silent testament to the bonds that connect us all and the enduring hope for redemption and peace, even amidst the most tragic of histories. Story number 3. Whispers of Portlock. I've always been drawn to the untamed wilderness of Alaska, where the vast expanse of snow-covered forests and towering peaks seem to guard secrets older than time itself. My fascination with remote places and the stories they harbor led me to Portlock, a forgotten village nestled deep within the Ural Mountains. The tales of its sudden abandonment and the mysterious disappearances during the brutal winter of 1949 had piqued my interest. Determined to uncover the truth, I embarked on a journey that would forever change my understanding of fear and survival. The flight to Anchorage was uneventful, the landscape below a mesmerizing tapestry of white and green. From there, I rented a sturdy 4x4 and began the arduous drive to Portlock. The road wound through dense forests and over rugged terrain, each mile bringing me closer to the heart of the wilderness. By the time I reached the outskirts of Portlock, dusk had settled, casting long shadows across the snow-drenched landscape. Portlock appeared as a ghostly apparition against the fading light, rows of dilapidated cabins, their wooden frames weathered by countless winters, stood in eerie silence. The once thriving community now lay abandoned, the remnants of lives abruptly halted by an unseen force. I parked my truck near the center of the village, the wind whispering through the empty streets like the sighs of lost souls. As night fell, the temperature plummeted, and a fierce snowstorm began to brew. The wind howled through the narrow alleys, carrying with it an unsettling sense of dread. I set up my tent near the remnants of the local schoolhouse, its doors hanging ajar, swaying with the force of the storm. Inside, the cold was biting, and the air was thick with the scent of decay and abandonment. I decided to explore the village before night fully engulfed it, hoping to find clues about the sudden disappearance of the residents. Each cabin told a story of haste and terror, frozen meals on tables, clothes scattered as if dropped in a panic, and personal belongings left behind. My flashlight beam danced across walls adorned with faded photographs, capturing moments of a community now lost to the unforgiving wilderness. As I moved deeper into the village, I stumbled upon the old church, the steeple piercing the stormy sky. The door creaked open, revealing an interior shrouded in darkness. I stepped inside, the floorboards groaning under my weight. The pews were covered in a thick layer of dust, and the altar stood abandoned, its once grand decorations now tarnished by time. It was here that I felt the first true presence of something malevolent. A faint whisper echoed through the hall, a voice barely audible over the storm. Leave. Leave now. The words sent a chill down my spine, and I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Panic surged through me as I fumbled with the latch. But it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling the church with an oppressive fear. In the dim light, I noticed a series of footprints leading from the altar to the back of the church, a path that seemed to disappear into the darkness beyond. Summoning every ounce of courage, I followed the trail, my heart pounding in my chest. The footprints were enormous, far larger than any humans, their depth suggesting immense weight and power. They led me to a hidden door beneath the altar, partially concealed by fallen debris. With trembling hands, I pushed the door open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward into the abyss. The air grew colder as I descended, the whispers now a cacophony of anguished voices surrounding me. At the bottom, I entered a vast underground chamber, its walls lined with ancient symbols and flickering torchlight casting grotesque shadows. In the center stood a stone altar, upon which lay remnants of ritualistic artifacts, cracked idols, burned candles, and remnants of offerings. As I approached the altar, the temperature dropped further, my breath visible in the frigid air. Suddenly, the chamber doors slammed shut, and a deafening roar filled the space. The footprints materialized on the icy floor, circling around me in a menacing pattern. From the shadows emerged the Nantianak, a towering figure enveloped in thick, white fur, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The creature let out a bone-chilling howl, its presence overwhelming and suffocating. I backed away, my mind racing to comprehend the horror before me. The legends were true. The Nantianak was no mere myth, but a vengeful spirit bound to the land by the atrocities committed during the Donner Pass tragedy. You disturbed our peace, the creature seemed to convey through its piercing gaze, the weight of centuries of suffering evident in its form. The air around me vibrated with an intense energy, the walls of the chamber closing in as the Nantianak advanced. Desperation clawed at my sanity as I realized that survival was now a matter of understanding and appeasing the restless spirit. Summoning every ounce of resolve, I began to speak softly, recounting the tragic story of the Donner Party and the pain that had bound the Nantianak to this forsaken place. My words were filled with remorse and a plea for forgiveness, hoping to bridge the gap between our worlds. The creature paused, its menacing presence wavering as if touched by my sincerity. The whispers softened, the oppressive fear lifting as the Nantianak regarded me with a sorrowful intensity. Slowly, the ancient symbols on the walls began to glow with a soft light, and the chamber seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The creature let out a final, mournful howl before fading into the ether, the chamber returning to a peaceful stillness. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I made my way back to the surface, the storm outside now abating as if acknowledging the resolution of a long-standing curse. The village of Portlock stood silent once more, the weight of its dark history lifted by the acknowledgement and respect for the lost souls that had been trapped by tragedy. Driving away from Portlock, the memory of that night remained etched in my mind, a haunting reminder of the thin veil between human ambition and the supernatural forces that guard the wilderness. The legends of the Nantianak continue to echo through the snowy forests of Alaska, a testament to the enduring power of fear, survival, and the unspoken bonds that connect us all. Years have passed since that transformative winter, but the story of Portlock and its cursed legacy lives on. Locals still speak in hushed tones of the Nantianak, the snow monster that roams the wilderness during the fiercest storms, a guardian of a tragic past. And sometimes, when the wind howls through the trees and the snow blankets the land in silence, I catch a glimpse of a towering shadow or hear the distant echo of anguished whispers, a silent testament to the enduring hope for peace and the healing that comes from honoring the stories of those who have been lost. Living with the memory of that night has taught me to respect the untamed beauty of nature and the legends that protect it. It's a reminder that some places hold secrets too profound to be left untouched. their echoes lingering in the winds and whispers of the mountains. And as long as we remember and honor the tales of those who came before us, the spirits of the past will continue to guide us. Their whispers a haunting yet beautiful melody that echoes through the ages. Story number 4. The Eternal Flame of Whispering Pines. I've always been captivated by the stories that linger in the shadows of Maine's vast wilderness. The towering pines, cloaked in snow, seem to guard secrets older than time itself. When I first heard about the eternal flame of whispering pines, I dismissed it as another local legend, another tale spun by generations to explain the unexplainable. But as I stood on the edge of the forest, the biting cold of an Alaskan-like winter enveloping me, I couldn't help but feel a shiver of anticipation mixed with unease. My name is Alex Thompson, a freelance journalist with a penchant for unraveling mysteries that others prefer to ignore. The small town of Eldridge Falls, nestled deep within Maine's rugged terrain, was the perfect setting for my latest investigation. The legend spoke of an old house, long abandoned, where a family perished in a brutal snowstorm in the late 1800s. Since that fateful winter, it was said that a mysterious flame burned perpetually within its walls, a spectral reminder not to trespass upon the sacred land of their ancestors. Equipped with my camera, notebook, and a sturdy pair of boots, I set out just as the first snowfall of the season began to blanket the landscape. The journey to Whispering Pines, the area where the house stood, was treacherous. The roads were narrow, winding through dense forests that seemed to close in around me, the snow muffling every sound except the crunch of my footsteps. As dusk approached, the temperature plummeted, and the sky darkened to an ominous shade of gray. I reached the clearing where the house was rumored to lie, the silhouette barely visible through the falling snow. The house stood alone, its once grand facade now decayed and worn, windows shattered and doors hanging ajar. An eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by the howling wind and the occasional creak of the old structure settling into the snow. I approached cautiously, the snow swirling around my feet, making each step a challenge. The legend had warned against visiting during winter, but my curiosity outweighed my fear. As I drew closer, the faint glow of a flame flickered through a broken window, casting ghostly shadows on the snow-covered ground. My heart raced not from fear, but from the thrill of uncovering the truth. Inside, the house was a time capsule of the past. Dust-covered furniture, remnants of a once cozy hearth, and personal belongings scattered about as if the family had vanished in the midst of their daily routines. I set up my camera, documenting every detail, my flashlight piercing the darkness and illuminating the remnants of lives abruptly halted by the storm. As midnight approached, the temperature dropped further, and the howling wind outside grew louder, as if protesting my intrusion. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, the oppressive silence now filled with an intangible presence. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible over the storm, repeating the same phrase, "Leave, leave now." I froze, my breath visible in the frigid air, and strained to listen. The whispering seemed to emanate from the very walls, carrying a sorrowful plea that sent chills down my spine. Gathering my courage, I followed the sound to the back of the house, where the eternal flame burned with an unnatural intensity. The fire danced with an ethereal light, casting long, wavering shadows that twisted and contorted in the darkness. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted even further, and the flame's glow intensified, illuminating a portrait hanging above the fireplace. It depicted the family, their faces frozen in expressions of fear and desperation, their eyes staring lifelessly into the void. My heart ached as I realized the true weight of their tragedy, their souls forever bound to this place by the curse of their untimely demise. Just as I reached out to touch the portrait, a gust of wind slammed the door shut, the sound deafening in the confined space. The whispers turned into mournful cries, echoing through the house with a haunting resonance. Shadows moved independently of any light source, coalescing into ghostly apparitions that glided silently through the rooms, their presence both mesmerizing and terrifying. I backed away, stumbling over a broken chair, my mind racing with the implications of what I was witnessing. The legends had spoken of the flame as a warning, a spectral beacon to deter trespassers. But seeing it firsthand was a different matter entirely. The apparitions began to converge on me, their hollow eyes filled with anguish and longing. "Respect our land," one of the spirits moaned, its voice a chilling blend of sorrow and rage. "Do not disturb our peace." Terror seized me, but amidst the fear, a deep sense of empathy took root. These were not mere ghosts. They were lost souls, victims of a merciless winter, their lives snuffed out by forces beyond their control. The flame, the whispers, the apparitions, all were manifestations of their pain and a desperate plea for remembrance and respect. Summoning every ounce of strength, I spoke softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry for disturbing your peace. I honor your memory and seek only to understand your story." The atmosphere shifted almost immediately. The oppressive cold lifted slightly, the mournful cries fading into a gentle whisper of gratitude. The apparitions paused, their forms wavering as if considering my words. The eternal flame burned brighter for a moment before dimming to a steady, tranquil glow. "Thank you," the spirits whispered in unison, their voices blending into a harmonious sigh. One by one, they began to fade, their presence dissolving into the air like mist in the morning sun. The house, once a place of torment and tragedy, now exuded a sense of peace and closure. Exhausted but relieved, I packed my gear and made my way back to the entrance of the house. The storm had passed, leaving behind a serene stillness that enveloped the landscape. As I stepped outside, the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, casting a golden hue over the snow-covered ground. The eternal flame had extinguished, its purpose fulfilled, leaving behind only the memory of the family's tragic story and their enduring plea for respect and remembrance. Driving away from Whispering Pines, I couldn't help but reflect on the profound encounter. The legend of the eternal flame was more than just a cautionary tale. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring bonds that connect us to those who came before. The family's curse had been lifted, not through confrontation or fear, but through empathy and understanding. Years have passed since that transformative winter in Maine, but the memory of the eternal flame remains vivid in my mind. The story of Whispering Pines continues to resonate, a haunting reminder of the thin veil between life and death, and the importance of honoring the past to bring peace to the present. Whenever a snowstorm rolls in and the winds howl through the pines, I'm reminded of the night I faced the eternal flame and witnessed the enduring power of compassion and respect. Living with the memory of that night has taught me to approach every legend with an open heart and a discerning mind. It's a reminder that some stories are not just meant to be heard, but to be felt and understood on a deeper level. And as long as we remember and honor the tales of those who have been lost, their spirits will continue to guide us. Their whispers a haunting yet beautiful melody that echoes through the ages. And sometimes, when the snow blankets the ground in serene silence and the pines sway gently in the cold breeze, I catch a glimpse of a flickering light in the distance or hear the faint echo of a family's laughter. A silent testament to the bonds that connect us all and the healing that comes from remembering and honoring the stories of those who have been lost. Story number 5. Echoes on the Ice, the Curse of Lake Superior. I've always been drawn to the haunting beauty of Lake Superior, its vast expanse of ice stretching endlessly under the pale winter sun. Growing up in a small town on its shores, I was no stranger to the legends that whispered through the icy winds and echoed across the frozen landscape. But nothing could have prepared me for the night I encountered the curse that locals had long feared but never truly believed. It was the dead of winter, December to be exact, when my curiosity led me to embark on what was supposed to be a simple ice fishing trip. My friends and I had spent countless hours navigating the treacherous ice, our laughter and camaraderie masking the underlying tension that seemed to seep from the very ground beneath us. This year, however, felt different. There was an unspoken unease in the air, a sense that something was watching us from the depths below. The sun had barely risen when we set out, the sky a dull gray that threatened the arrival of the first real snowstorm of the season. Armed with our gear and a stubborn determination, we drilled holes into the thick ice, eager to catch a few of the elusive trout that thrived beneath the surface. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the occasional splash of a fish and the distant calls of winter birds. As the day wore on, the temperature plummeted, and the wind began to howl with a ferocity that matched the growing storm on the horizon. By late afternoon, we had caught enough to satisfy our appetites, but the weather showed no signs of relenting. Reluctantly, we began packing up, the weight of our haul a small comfort against the biting cold that now dominated the landscape. As we made our way back across the ice, the storm fully unleashed its fury, snow swirling around us in blinding gusts that obscured our path. That's when I heard it, a faint, melodic singing carried on the wind, its haunting tones both beautiful and terrifying. I froze, the music resonating deep within me, stirring memories of old tales my grandmother used to tell about the Lake Superior sirens. According to legend, these spirits of women who had perished on the lake would sing to lure unsuspecting souls to a watery grave, ensuring that the curse of the lake would never be broken. "Did you guys hear that?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the storm's rage. My friend Jake, always the skeptic, shook his head. "Probably just the wind playing tricks on us. Let's keep moving." But the singing persisted, growing louder and more insistent, pulling at my very soul. The eerie melody seemed to emanate from beneath the ice, weaving through the howling wind and making my skin crawl with fear. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to rationalize the sound. Couldn't be real, could it? As we trudged through the knee-deep snow, the singing enveloped us, its sorrowful notes tugging at the edges of our sanity. Suddenly, Jake stumbled, his foot slipping on an unseen patch of ice. I reached out to steady him, my breath visible in the frigid air. "Jake, are you okay?" I called out, concern lacing my voice. He looked up, his eyes wide with terror. I think something's out there." Before I could respond, a massive shadow loomed over us, its form barely discernible through the swirling snow. The temperature around us dropped further, the air thick with an oppressive chill that seemed to sap our strength. The singing intensified, now accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps pounding the ice in our direction. "We need to get out of here," Jake urged, his voice cracking with fear. "Now!" We broke into a desperate sprint, the storm closing in around us like a living entity. The shadow pursued us, its presence growing more tangible with each passing second. The singing morphed into a cacophony of wails and cries, the spirits of the lake echoing their eternal sorrow and rage. As we reached a narrow crevasse, the ice beneath us groaned ominously, threatening to give way. The shadow was upon us, its monstrous form towering above, eyes glowing with a malevolent light that pierced through the darkness. I turned to see the face of the woman from the legends, her expression twisted in anguish, her eyes hollow and void of any humanity. "Leave this land," she whispered, her voice a haunting blend of sorrow and fury. Panic surged through me as I realized we were running out of options. The ice beneath our feet began to crack, the sound of impending doom echoing in my ears. With a final burst of adrenaline, we dove into the crevasse, the ice giving way beneath us and sending us tumbling into the icy depths below. We landed in a frozen cavern, the temperature plummeting even further, our breaths clouding in the frigid air. The singing had stopped, replaced by an oppressive silence that pressed against our eardrums. We scrambled to our feet, the reality of our situation sinking in. We were trapped, cut off from the surface by the very curse we had sought to escape. As we navigated the labyrinthine tunnels, the spirits of the lake seemed to watch our every move, their presence felt but never seen. the weight of their sorrow pressed down on us. Each step forward a reminder of the lives lost to the unforgiving winter and the curse that bound their spirits to the frozen lake. Hours passed in a blur of fear and desperation, the cold seeping into our bones and threatening to claim us as its own. Just when hope seemed lost, we stumbled upon a chamber illuminated by a soft, ethereal glow, the eternal flame, a spectral fire that burned without fuel, casting flickering shadows that danced across the walls. In the center of the chamber stood the spirit of the woman, her form shimmering with an otherworldly light. Her eyes met ours, filled with a sorrow that transcended time and space. "Remember us? Honor us?" she implored, her voice a gentle plea that resonated deep within our souls. I stepped forward, my voice trembling as I spoke. "We're sorry for disturbing your peace. We honor your memory and seek to understand your story." The spirit nodded, her form beginning to fade as the eternal flame burned brighter, the warmth of her forgiveness enveloping us. The oppressive cold lifted, replaced by a sense of calm that had eluded us for so long. The paths back to the surface opened before us, the spirit's curse lifted by our acknowledgement and respect. We emerged from the cavern just as dawn broke over Lake Superior, the storm having passed and the sun casting a golden light over the pristine landscape. Exhausted but alive, we made our way back to the shore, the memory of the night's events etched into our minds forever. In the days that followed, our story spread, adding a new chapter to the already rich folklore of Lake Superior. Locals shared their own encounters, tales of eerie songs and ghostly apparitions that served as warnings to those who dared to challenge the lake's sacred ground. The legend of the woman's curse became a testament to the enduring power of respect and remembrance, a reminder that some places hold secrets too profound to be left untouched. Years have passed since that transformative winter, but the memory of the eternal flame and the curse of Lake Superior remains vivid in my mind. The experience taught me the profound impact of empathy and the importance of honoring those who have been lost to time. The whispers of the lake continue to echo through the pines, a haunting reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead, and the eternal bonds that connect us all. Whenever a snowstorm rolls in and the winds howl across the frozen lake, I can't help but feel a lingering sense of unease, a reminder of the night we faced the curse of Lake Superior and survived to tell the tale. The legends of the haunted lake serve as a cautionary tale, a testament to the enduring power of fear, survival, and the unspoken bonds that connect us all. Living with the memory of that night has instilled in me a deep respect for the untamed wilderness and the legends that protect it. It's a reminder that some stories are not just meant to be heard, but to be felt and understood on a deeper level. And as long as we remember and honor the tales of those who have been lost, the spirits of the past will continue to guide us. Their whispers a haunting yet beautiful melody that echoes through the ages. And sometimes, when the snow blankets the land in serene silence and the pines sway gently in the cold breeze, I catch a glimpse of a flickering light on the horizon or hear the faint echo of a sorrowful song, a silent testament to the bonds that connect us all and the healing that comes from remembering and honoring the stories of those who have been lost. Story number 6. Whispers of Winter Hollow. I've always been fascinated by the tales that linger in the shadowed corners of America's heartland, where history and legend intertwine like the roots of the ancient oaks that guard forgotten secrets. Vermont, with its picturesque landscapes and quaint towns, seemed like an unlikely setting for the darkness that awaited me. Yet, it was here, in the secluded hamlet of Winter Hollow, that I would confront a curse older than the town itself. The invitation had been straightforward, an assignment to document abandoned places for a photography project. As someone who thrived on uncovering hidden stories, Winter Hollow was a perfect fit, nestled deep within the Green Mountains. The town had long been abandoned after a series of mysterious disappearances in the late 1800s. Local folklore attributed the tragedies to the wrath of a woman named Eliza Hartley, a healer unjustly accused of witchcraft and executed by the very community she had vowed to protect. With my camera slung over my shoulder and a notebook in hand, I arrived in Winter Hollow just as autumn began to relinquish its grip to the impending winter. The air was crisp, and the first snowflakes of the season danced through the streets, covering the remnants of the town in a pristine blanket of white. The silence was palpable, broken only by the distant call of a lone owl and the soft crunch of my boots on the snow-covered ground. My destination was the Hartley house, the epicenter of the town's tragedy. The house stood at the edge of Winter Hollow, its Victorian architecture now marred by time and neglect. As I approached, an unsettling feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. The windows were shattered, the once grand porch now sagging under the weight of years of neglect. Yet, amidst the decay, a faint, flickering light emanated from the attic window, a beacon that defied the desolation surrounding it. I pushed open the creaking gate and made my way to the front door, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. The door groaned in protest as I pushed it open, revealing a grand foyer frozen in time. Dust-covered furniture and cobwebs adorned every corner, the remnants of a life abruptly halted by tragedy. I set up my camera, capturing the eerie stillness that enveloped the house. As night fell, the temperature plummeted, and the first heavy snowstorm of the season began to rage outside. I decided to stay overnight, hoping to capture the essence of the house under the blanket of snow. I settled into the parlor, the flickering light from the fireplace casting long, wavering shadows across the room. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Around midnight, the silence was shattered by a faint, melodic laughter echoing through the halls. I froze, my heart racing as I strained to locate the source. The laughter grew louder, more distinct, carrying with it an undeniable sense of sorrow and malice. I grabbed my flashlight and cautiously followed the sound, the beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. The laughter led me to the attic, the door standing ajar as if inviting me into the abyss. With trembling hands, I pushed the door open, the stairs groaning under my weight. The attic was a dusty, cluttered space filled with relics of the past, old photographs, broken furniture, and remnants of Eliza Hartley's life as a healer. In the center stood a solitary rocking chair, gently swaying as if moved by an invisible force. As I approached, the temperature dropped further, my breath visible in the frigid air. The laughter ceased abruptly, replaced by a deep, mournful sigh. I noticed a portrait hanging on the wall, Eliza's stern gaze fixed upon me. Her eyes seemed to follow my every move, filled with a mix of accusation and sorrow. A sudden gust of wind extinguished the fireplace, plunging the attic into darkness. My flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced around the room. I felt an overwhelming presence, the air thick with the weight of unspoken pain. The whispers began then, soft, indistinct voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Leave now. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, their pleas echoing through the confined space. I turned to flee, but the attic door slammed shut with a force that sent me sprawling to the floor. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to my feet, searching for an escape. The rocking chair began to move again, the ghostly figure of Eliza Hartley materializing before me. Her eyes burned with an intensity that pierced my very soul, her voice a chilling blend of sorrow and rage. "Do not trespass on sacred ground," she intoned, her voice resonating with centuries of anguish. "Respect the land, and honor the spirits you disturb." Desperate to escape, I grabbed my camera and captured one final photograph before bolting down the stairs. The house seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, the very walls closing in as I raced out into the storm. The laughter and whispers followed me, a haunting reminder of the curse that bound Eliza Hartley to Winter Hollow. Outside, the storm raged with newfound fury, the snow swirling around me like a living entity. I made my way back to my truck, the path obscured by the relentless blizzard. The footprints, massive, humanoid prints, were scattered across the snow, leading deeper into the forest. Fear clawed at my mind as I realized that the curse was not just a legend, but a living, breathing force that sought to protect the sacred ground at all costs. I fumbled with the keys, my hands numb from the cold, and finally managed to start the engine. As I sped away from the haunted house, the laughter and whispers faded into the distance, replaced by the howling wind and the relentless storm. The eternal flame of Winter Hollow was no longer just a story, it was a living nightmare, a testament to the consequences of disturbing the sacred and the powerful legacy of Eliza Hartley. Back in the warmth of my cabin, I reviewed the photographs I had taken, each one a haunting glimpse into the cursed past of Winter Hollow. The portrait of Eliza, the ghostly figure in the attic, and the massive footprints in the snow, all served as a chilling reminder of the night I confronted the curse of Winter Hollow. Years have passed since that fateful winter, but the memory of Eliza Hartley and her eternal flame remains vivid in my mind. The experience taught me the profound impact of history and the importance of respecting the stories of those who came before us. Winter Hollow stands as a solemn reminder that some places hold secrets too powerful to be forgotten, their echoes lingering in the winds and whispers of the mountains. Whenever a storm rolls in and the snow blankets the land in silent fury, I can't help but feel a lingering sense of unease, a reminder of the night I faced the curse of Winter Hollow. The legends of Eliza Hartley continue to resonate, a testament to the enduring power of fear, survival, and the unspoken bonds that connect us all. Living with the memory of that night has instilled in me a deep respect for the untamed wilderness and the legends that protect it. It's a reminder that some stories are not just meant to be heard, but to be felt and understood on a deeper level. And as long as we remember and honor the tales of those who have been lost, the spirits of the past will continue to guide us. Their whispers a haunting yet beautiful melody that echoes through the ages. And sometimes, when the wind rustles through the pines and the snow blankets the land in serene silence, I catch a glimpse of a flickering light or hear the faint echo of Eliza's sorrowful plea, a silent testament to the bonds that connect us all and the healing that comes from remembering and honoring the stories of those who have been lost. Story number 7. Echoes of Hunger. I've always been fascinated by the untamed wilderness of Canada, where the vast expanses of snow-covered forests conceal secrets that the world has long forgotten. As an outdoor enthusiast and amateur historian, the legends of the Wendigo, those chilling tales of desperate survival and eternal hunger, captured my imagination. Determined to uncover the truth behind these stories, I embarked on a journey deep into the heart of the Yukon, where the shadows of the past lingered like the lingering cold of a relentless winter. It was late November when I arrived at the small town of White Pine, the gateway to the wilderness. The air was crisp, each breath a visible reminder of the approaching winter. The townsfolk eyed me with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, their eyes hinting at stories they rarely shared. I checked into a modest inn, its wooden facade sturdy against the biting winds that swept through the streets. That evening, over a warm meal and a fire that crackled in the hearth, I struck up a conversation with old Tom, the innkeeper. His weathered face bore the marks of countless winters, and his eyes held a depth of knowledge that suggested he had seen more than most. "You're here to learn about the Wendigo, aren't ya?" he asked, his voice gravelly from years of cold nights. I nodded, eager to hear what he had to say. "Yes, I want to understand the truth behind the legends." Tom leaned back, staring into the dancing flames. "The Wendigo is more than just a story. It's a curse of the wilderness, born from desperation and madness. Those who succumb to hunger and violence become its vessels, forever trapped in a cycle of insatiable craving." His words sent a shiver down my spine. I had heard fragments of these tales before, stories of hunting parties vanishing without a trace, their bodies found mangled, the land around them marked by massive, inhuman footprints. But hearing it directly from someone who had witnessed the toll the wilderness exacted was unnerving. The next morning, armed with maps and local advice, I set out into the wilderness, determined to follow the paths where the Wendigo's presence had been most strongly felt. The forest was dense, the trees towering like silent sentinels against the gray sky. The snow crunched under my boots, each step taking me deeper into the heart of the untamed land. As the day progressed, the weather began to shift. Dark clouds gathered, and the temperature plummeted, a harsh reminder of the unforgiving nature of winter. By late afternoon, a fierce blizzard descended upon the forest, the wind howling like the cries of lost souls. Visibility dropped to mere feet, and the snow whipped around me with relentless fury. I sought shelter under a thick canopy of pines, their branches heavy with snow. The storm raged on, the world outside transformed into a white, swirling maelstrom. As night fell, the temperature dropped further, and the darkness seemed to press in from all sides. I lit a small fire, the flames flickering against the oppressive cold, providing a semblance of warmth and light. Hours passed in uneasy silence, the storm's rage unrelenting. That's when I heard it, a low, guttural growl, emanating from the depths of the forest. My heart raced as I strained to locate the source of the sound. The growl was unlike anything I had ever heard, a blend of animalistic fury and something more sinister, something almost human. I grabbed my flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness, and peered into the swirling snow. In the distance, barely visible through the blinding storm, was a figure massive, hunched, and covered in thick, matted fur. Its eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, reflecting an intelligence that sent chills down my spine. Panic surged through me as the creature began to approach, its movements deliberate and unhurried. The footprints it left behind were enormous, far larger than any humans, their depth suggesting immense weight and power. I realized with mounting horror that I was not alone, that the legends were true, and the Wendigo was out there, hunting, desperate to survive. I stumbled back, knocking over a log that sent sparks flying into the air. The creature paused, its glowing eyes fixed on me with an intensity that spoke of ancient malice. "Leave this place," I managed to gasp, my voice barely audible over the storm's fury. The Wendigo let out a mournful howl, a sound that resonated deep within my very being. Took a step forward, and the ground trembled beneath its weight. I knew I had to act quickly. Any hesitation could cost me my life. Summoning every ounce of courage, I turned and ran, the snowstorm now my ally, obscuring my path as I fled deeper into the forest. The storm seemed to conspire against me, the wind pushing me back, making every step a battle against the elements. The growls and howls of the Wendigo followed me, a constant reminder that I was being pursued by something beyond human comprehension. My mind raced, searching for a way to escape the nightmare that had become my reality. As I ran, memories of the stories I had heard came flooding back, the desperate cries of hunters lost to the wilderness, the eerie silence that followed their disappearance, and the ominous presence of the Wendigo that lingered long after. The realization hit me hard. I wasn't just being hunted by a creature. I was now part of the legend, my story entwined with those who had come before me. Exhausted and near the brink of collapse, I stumbled upon a frozen stream, its surface slick with ice. Desperate for a way to slow my pursuer, I dove into the water, the freezing cold enveloping me as I plunged beneath the surface. The Wendigo paused at the edge, its glowing eyes searching for me, but the storm's wrath made it impossible for it to follow. I surfaced, gasping for air, and swam to the other side, the creature's growls fading into the distance as the storm began to abate. Drenched and shivering, I crawled onto the snow-covered bank, the silence now a heavy, oppressive presence. The storm had passed, leaving behind a serene yet haunting landscape. I knew I had to make my way back to civilization, but the forest felt endless, each direction identical in the blinding white. Hours turned into what felt like an eternity as I navigated the treacherous terrain, the fear of being hunted never truly leaving me. Just as hope began to wane, I emerged from the forest, the first light of dawn breaking through the clouds and casting a golden glow over the snow-covered landscape. I made my way back to White Pine, my body aching and my spirit broken, but alive. The town greeted me with a mixture of relief and fear, their eyes reflecting the stories I had lived to tell. In the days that followed, I shared my harrowing experience with the townsfolk, my photographs serving as evidence of the Wendigos' existence. Skeptics dismissed my account as a product of isolation and fear, but those who listened could see the truth in my eyes and the desperation in my voice. The legend of the Wendigo in White Pine had been solidified, now grounded in my own terrifying encounter. Years have passed since that fateful winter, but the memory of the Wendigo remains vivid in my mind. The experience taught me the profound impact of fear and the thin veil that separates reality from the supernatural. The wilderness holds secrets that defy understanding, their whispers lingering in the winds and echoes of the night. Whenever a storm rolls in and the wind howls through the snow-covered forests, I can't help but feel a lingering sense of unease, a reminder of the night I faced the Wendigo and survived to tell the tale. The legends of the haunted wilderness serve as a testament to the enduring power of fear, survival, and the unspoken bonds that connect us all. Living with the memory of that night has instilled in me a deep respect for the untamed wilderness and the legends that protect it. It's a reminder that some stories are too powerful to be forgotten, their echoes lingering in the winds and whispers of the mountains. And as long as we remember and honor the tales of those who came before us, the spirits of the past will continue to guide us, their whispers a haunting yet beautiful melody that echoes through the ages. And sometimes, when the snow blankets the land in serene silence and the pines sway gently in the cold breeze, I catch a glimpse of a faint shadow or hear the distant echo of a sorrowful howl, a silent testament to the bonds that connect us all and the enduring hope for redemption and peace. Even amidst the most relentless storms,